Oh, dear Lord. You made many, many poor people. I realize, of course, it's no shame to be poor. But it's no great honor either.
Welcome to Money Unplugged. I'm Chris Hill. Thanks for being here. This week on the show, I talk with Joseph Moore. He's a historian and author of the best-selling book, How to Get Rich in American History, 300 Years of Financial Advice That Worked and Didn't. So here's the thing. A few weeks ago, I got an email out of the blue from a former guest on the show. Paul Ollinger, the tech executive turned stand-up comedian that I talked with last October, sent me an email, basically said, "Hope you're doing well. I really think you would enjoy talking with Joseph Moore. He just wrote a book that made me think of you, and if you want me to connect you two together over email, just say the word." And that's what led to the conversation you're about to hear. And Paul was right. I had a blast talking with Joseph. We talked about how his career path took some unexpected turns, how he narrowly avoided financial disaster in 2008, as well as the unusual reason why he and his wife cut their honeymoon short. It wasn't anything tragic or sad, but it's memorable. I'll just say that. I promise, it's memorable. So let's get into it with Joseph Moore. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in the middle of South Carolina, outside of Columbia and Lexington County as it gets towards Aiken, that kind of area. Somewhere in between Columbia and Augusta, Georgia is where I was raised. So rural South Carolina.
And what did your parents do?
My dad was an electrician. My earliest childhood memory, like absolute earliest memory, is it's nighttime and we drive to Midlands Technical College at night because I just remember it was so dark and there were all these bright lights and we go up this big building, which I'm sure was like 3 stories. And we bring my dad dinner because he would work during the day and then go to school at night for his license in like electrical engineering or whatever for his associate's degree. And yeah, he crawled beneath mobile homes and inspected wiring for the county was where he ended up and then just became an electrical inspector. He made $14,000 a year. And I only found that out when I was researching the book because I went back to him. I was like, can you kind of give me some understanding of this? Because we didn't talk about it. And he said, yeah, I distinctly remember I made $14,000 a year and it was the most I'd ever made in my life and couldn't imagine. And I remember the day he got promoted. And the reason I know this is because I came home from baseball practice or something. I'm like a teenager by this point. And opened the door. My mom is in like a really tight-fitting black dress. And she has wine and spaghetti, and that's what we're eating tonight. And my mom was a beautiful woman. She's in a slinky dress because my dad now made $20,000 a year. And like we were going to have, and we didn't drink wine. So it was like, what is going on? Mom is dressed like that. There's a wine on the table, but my dad had gotten a promotion and he now made more than $20K a year and we were going to be rolling in it. So the answer to your question is not from money. Where I was raised is not where the money was.
What is the earliest memory you have of money, though? And that's a great one, by the way. That comes with a whole backstory and a very riveting image. But yes. I'm curious about whatever early memory of money that you have.
Well, it wasn't like the quote that I put in my book was very intentionally. I don't like to do a lot of like quotes at the front of chapters, but I started it with the Mark Twain quote that said, where I was brought up, we didn't talk about money because there wasn't enough to furnish a topic of conversation. Like why would people who don't have money talk about it, right? And so the exception to that was my grandparents my grandfather graduated high school in 1929. What a year. And so he lives through the Depression in his prime young years, and he was forever marked by that. And so he had a real almost obsession with saving and not spending. He drove the most ratty, beat-up used cars. And so the only conversations were about not spending on things you didn't need because they were showpieces of the middle-class lifestyle. My grandmother, I think maybe the earliest memory of a family story about money is my grandmother mentioned my grandfather, when they bought their house with a mortgage, it was $56.56. That was the payment. And she said, And she told me this when I was, I guess, in my, boyhood years. She said, I woke up and your grandfather wasn't in bed, and I got up and I walked down the hall, like, what is he doing? And it's middle of the night, and he's at the kitchen table with a pen and paper, and he's muttering to himself, $56.56, $56.56. He's trying to figure out how to pay off the house early. It was so anxiety producing. He paid it off in 7 years.
Wow.
Because she said, we ate only what we had to eat. We saved every penny. We put it on that mortgage. So I was raised with that kind of sense of like working class, that you can't really get rich, but you can at least get out of debt. And that's kind of what I call kind of and I don't mean it as a disparaging way, but there are kind of these kind of peasant mentalities that we have still to this day that say, look, you're not going to get ahead. So you have two options. You can get really deeply into debt because who cares and just enjoy your life, or you can get out of debt. And that's kind of a level of success that you can see from where you are. And so it's okay to reach for that. And it's worth striving for. And that's what I was raised around.
Did you have a job when you were a teenager, or were you just playing baseball?
Yes. No, as soon as I wanted to drive, my parents were very clear with me, you and what money? Like, right? Who's buying this car? So my dad had a truck to honor my father. He had a truck, and I very quickly wrecked it. And they were like, well, then you're done. If anything here, it's on your own. And so I went and got a job at the car wash, and I worked there for 3 years through high school. I would get off school at 3:00 and be there by 3:30, and I would work the afternoon shift Monday to Friday, and then I work all day Saturday. And my parents even have remarked later, like, we didn't take you seriously. Like, we thought there's no way you were going to keep working at a car wash just so you could have a car. But it was like, I had the cleanest used car on the high school parking lot. And, and it taught me what hard work was, right? Like, there's sludge in the bottom of a car wash. Like, once a month when it rains, they'll pull up and somebody has to go in there to shovel it out, and it smells like manure. And when you spend your Saturday doing that, you learn, money's hard to get. Like, this is not an easy thing.
It's not, but those are the lessons that hopefully stick with you from those first jobs. It's something that has come up on this show a bunch of times, just the whole idea of showing up on time, getting the job done, and coming back the next day to do the same thing.
Yeah, no, it was pivotal in a way I didn't understand at the time. And it's hard to tell young people that, but like, you're learning lessons you don't know you're learning. You're internalizing a sense that, like, actually, if things go wrong, I'll be okay because I'm not too good to drive for Instacart, right? I will find a way. And I think there is a really admirable working class trait that families have all across this country and across the world, which is that, like, I'll figure it out, right? Whatever happens, I will find a way. We're not gonna go hungry. I will do what it takes. And I have met people, which were, coming from the working class and then going into academia, I not just rub shoulders with, like, it's far more common to be around people who don't have that mentality. They can't understand that mentality. One of my favorite hacks as I navigated academia was to ask people where they went to high school, which is not a question anyone's ready for, right? If I say, where'd you go to college? Everybody knows, of course, I went to Harvard, then I was at Yale, but nobody's ready for high school. And so they would answer honestly, and I would go look it up. It was always some elite preparatory school or like the best public school in the state of California or something like that. And I had none of that background. And I remember the first time I met somebody who was like, well, I would never do that. And that was just not a mentality I understood, that something would be beneath you.
Speaking of college, you went to Anderson University. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I started out actually at a small junior college, and because my parents had no money for college, and I got in, and that was the criteria. Like, I got in, and then I realized I could take out student loans. They had this magic room. You went in, you signed paperwork, and they let you stay. Thought, that sounds wonderful. And so I was there. Then I transferred to Anderson, which is in South Carolina. It's a liberal arts college in South Carolina. Got a good, solid education there in history. And then so that was my undergraduate experience. I didn't go to any name brand schools.
What made you choose that field of study?
I fell in love with history when I was a little boy. I went to my grandparents took me to an American Revolutionary War reenactment, which is an odd thing for people to do, but nonetheless, it's, yes. And they let me fire a musket. I was like, I'm sold. And so we went to the bookstore, and I was like 8 years old, I think. I had to go back and look at this the other day. I think I was 9 or 10, maybe a little older. And the bookstore had books about the American Revolution. And one was by a guy named A.J. Langeth called Patriots. It's like 600 and something pages. And I convinced my grandmother to buy it. And we took it home and I just read the whole thing. And I was like maybe 10. And I was in love with it. I was like, oh, you can write about this. So I write him a fan letter. And he wrote me back. This is pre-email. There's no email, right? Like I literally postmarked a letter to A.J. Langeth.
The reason he wrote you back was you wrote the first fan letter he'd ever received.
Yeah.
That's why he wrote you back.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was hooked at that point. I was like, oh, people write stories about the past, and I want to do that.
So you graduate with your degree. What do you do then?
Well, I took a detour because I thought for a while there I was going to be a Presbyterian minister. And so I went to seminary. And that proved to be really important in my life on multiple levels. Obviously, you meet a lot of incredible people and you get to invest in people's lives and all these things. But two things happened. Number one is I learned what it was to have to produce a piece of writing about a complicated topic that people wouldn't get up and walk out of, right? And so I had to learn how to every week say something new about something old that would keep the attention of people who had not studied this and didn't care to, right? And so that habit of regularly producing something that people could understand is, I think, one of the reasons I've been able to get to write histories that are more accessible than kind of an academic history. And then the second thing happened was I had a wonderful pastoral care professor who sat me down and said, you should not be a pastor because you do. He's like, most of the job is sitting around listening to people's pain and complaints and sadness. And basically it's pastoral care. And he's like, you just want to read books and write about it. You should be an academic. And so that's when it kind of clicked for me, like, oh, okay. Because if you're from the working class South and you're articulate and somewhat smart, but not good with math, one of the things they send you to is the ministry. They're like, oh, you'd be a great pastor. And so I just kind of assumed that was a great path for me. And his willingness to be honest with me that I was going to be a terrible counselor, but I really, what I was really there to become was an academic, set me off and I pivoted back towards history.
It's always nice when people in the kindest way possible tell you the truth.
Yes. Yes.
And in particular, the truth about yourself and the decisions that you're making.
That's hard. That's a hard currency to find and get translated, right? Like, could somebody exchange truth with me? And you don't find much of that in the world these days.
So is that what sets you on the path to get your PhD in history? It's
yes.
like, all right, it's clear I'm not cut out to be a minister. Let me go back to my first love of history.
And here I had spent 2 years training for the wrong thing. And so I pivoted into like a degree for like religious, like church history or something like that to show that I'd done some work. And then I snuck my way into a PhD program by the kindness of my doctoral mentor, who's now passed, Robert Calhoun, who was one of the great Revolutionary War historians of his generation. And so I got to work with Bob for wonderful set of years. And then Mark Knoll at Notre Dame very kindly took me under his wing and let me go to Notre Dame and work some of my dissertation there. And so and it was relationships. It was people who took the time to read what I was saying and realize like, this guy is saying something no one else is saying. He's interested in topics we aren't studying. So instead of just redoing the same topic, he wanted to do something different. And that really, they were very kind to take a chance on me.
And how are you paying the bills? Because, just sort of looking at the timeline, you're kind of in school for a decade straight.
Yes. Debt, and more debt. I didn't remember. I'm going to go back to, I wasn't thinking about money. Money was not the goal. I think somebody said one time, like, if you want to get money, you should get into the line where the money is. But I hadn't gotten in that line. And so I honestly am not thinking about it at all until I'm a good way through the PhD in history. And that's when kind of the pivot for me occurred. I mean, I did have some jobs, back to our point, like I was helping out at a church. I was doing different things to try to make ends meet. I eventually got an assistantship that helped pay a little bit of the bills, but all the rest I just made up with debt because that's what everybody told me to do, right? Like everybody around me was doing the same thing, by the way, right? Every other person I knew was like either on a scholarship or taking on debt or both. And that's how I made it work. And then in 2005, as we were doing the PhD in history, my wife was doing her graduate work. We're 2 graduate students. And everybody said the lesson of history is very clear. Like renting is throwing your money away. And instead of thinking about that for a second, I nodded my head, signed the loan paperwork, no income, no verification, all the stuff you see. And we get a townhome in 2005. And in 2008, a friend at church is leading a Dave Ramsey class, basically, like a personal finance class for families. And he says, would you come? And I said, no, because I'm so smart, I don't need it. And he said, I didn't say it that way, but that's what I meant. Like, come on,
Right.
I don't need that stuff. And he said, look, I'm scared nobody will come. It'll be like a half empty room. It'll be awkward, but you come for support. So we go. They make us fill out a budget. We go home, fill out the budget. My wife goes to sleep. I literally did not sleep all night. I paced the house, just like my grandfather had.
I was going to say, you're muttering $56,
$56.56. And I'm like, who gave us a mortgage? And what idiot signed for? Oh, I'm the idiot that signed for this mortgage. And I could not sleep. My wife wakes up. She's like, what is wrong with you? It's like, we got to sell this house. We have no business owning the house. And so we put the house on the market. It sold on a Saturday. I distinctly remember it was on a Saturday in a bidding war. This is 2008. The next Saturday, my neighbor puts her house on the market. Doesn't sell. And so we were the last 2 people off the financial Titanic. And for the first time in my life, I was like, I need to know about money. I need to understand what just happened to me because I know I got lucky. I know it wasn't that I was smart. And so that was when I started to think about this. But I thought about it like a historian. Like, where did these ideas come from? Right? Like, who told me these things? Why did they believe it? Why did I believe it? And is that what we've always told? Or has it changed over time? Which it has changed a lot over time. And so, that began my journey towards trying to understand American finance and our financial advice and where does it come from. But I wanted to know how it became what we believed and how it changed.
It is interesting, though, just like thinking about your career and listening to you talk about these pivots from, your early love of history, but then you're studying theology, and then it's back to getting your PhD in history, and now, studying finance and writing a finance book. I mean, there is a through line there of each one of those disciplines is trying to study and understand and help other people understand how we make decisions, how we find meaning in our life, that sort of thing. And I'm curious, when you look back on your career, do you see, on the one hand, it's a series of hard right turns,
mm-hmm.
but looking at the through line, it seems like no, there is that theme throughout your education. And your career, and I'm just sort of wondering, what do you see when you look back on your career? Because I can see it both ways.
So I think there's people who come into the world of finance and personal finance and money management and all the things and all the jobs and all the people who comment on it. There's people who enter through the math door, and the math door is a very good door to enter through, right? Like, you're trying to make sense of the world in a rational way where it all adds up and it balances to zero, right? Or that you get it to grow, whatever. That's how their brains are wired. I know my brother is a CPA. That's why his brain is wired. I came in through the back door in the basement and came up through the world of trying to understand relationships and what this meant to people. It's almost like an odd puzzle to me that it exists because I'm more interested in the relationships to people and their money, to people and other people, that money ties them together. And so I just kind of came in through a door that was all about relationships and how people interacted with one another, which is what the story of history really is. It's like what people did and how they interacted. And it just so happened that because of my experience, I was interested in the money part of that story. As opposed to other parts. And so I find myself coming at it from a very relational storytelling, what was the experience like, less than can I make the math balance?
Summer's almost here, and if you want to spice up your menu in one simple move, get your hands on some Mar-Mar, the chili garlic condiment that goes on everything. It's spicy, sweet, and savory all at the same time, and it goes on everything. However you like your eggs in the morning, sandwiches at lunch, whatever you're having for dinner, I'm telling you, once you try it, you will not want to be without it. Mar-Mar comes in original, spicy, and they just added a gluten-free version. Go to ilovemarmar.com, use the promo code MONEY, and get 10% off. Cooking is like investing. You can make it as simple or as complicated as you want. But when it comes to cooking, I don't know about you, but I try to keep it simple with just a few spices. And Mar-Mar is on the list. Make your taste buds happy. Go to ilovemarmar.com, use the promo code MONEY, and get 10% off. All right, let's get back to Joseph. You've mentioned your wife a couple of times. You dedicated this new book to her. How much did the two of you talk about money before you got married?
We had one big conversation about it, in which on a single yellow spreadsheet, I showed her that I thought we could afford it. And that was it.
You could afford to get married?
We could afford to get married. No, we got married in college. I was a graduate student. I got a job offer making very little money, like $19,000 a year, I think. And I could fit it in around my classes. And I told her, I'm not taking the job if we're not getting married. I don't need the job. I don't need the money. But I'll take the job if you'll marry me. We went to class on Friday, got married on Saturday, took spring break for our honeymoon, and came back early because we were both anxious about our exams. So we're walking around Charleston, South Carolina, like day 3, like, are you okay? Do you need to get back and study? Because I kind of need to get back and study. And we were like, yeah, I want to go back and study. So we were married broke in college, right? And so all I was able to show her was, I think this job will pay for the rent and the food and the gas, and we'll figure the rest out. And FYI, they didn't tell me they weren't going to take the taxes out. So the first time I ever saw my wife cry was when we went to go get our taxes done, our very first year of marriage. And they were like, yeah, you owe thousands of dollars in taxes. And I was like, what do you mean? It was coming on my check, and it had not been. And we were on the ride home, and she starts crying. I was like, oh, shoot. She realizes she made a mistake. And she could still get out of this thing. And thankfully, to her, to my great, to her credit and my great thanks, she did not. But no, we navigated some of that stuff. But it was more catch as catch can. What is money here? What are we doing with it now? Move on. We're neither very materialistic, so it wasn't like, well, who's paying for the nice financial upgrades in life? We were just glad that we could make it, we could pay the bills.
You have taken her on another trip, though, haven't you? Because that's one of the saddest honeymoon stories I've heard. That doesn't involve divorce. Like, I've heard those stories, but it's like, no, you're still married.
No, we had a great honeymoon, by the way. We still laugh and joke about it, but we still laugh and joke. Like, by Thursday, we were both, I think it was actually Thursday. But like, we were both nervous about, we have exams on Monday. We need to get back to study, right? And people had, just all those things. No, we still go to Charleston every year. Every year we try to get away and say, like, and we kind of recreate the honeymoon, and we go to, the restaurants, and which has changed. I mean, over 20, I've been married for almost 25 years now. And, over time, the city has changed. So we enjoy going back. I still go to the same clothing store. We walked in to a clothing store on King Street in Charleston named Grady Irvin's, and this guy, who I guess was bored because nobody was showing up when we get married. This was March, and so it's March. There's nobody in the store. He takes sympathy on us. He gives us an incredible deal on like a jacket that I no business owning, but like it kind of looked like a professor jacket. And we would go in it every year. And as we started to make more money, I'd buy nicer clothing from him. And to this day, I go to the same store every year, buy a jacket from the same guy at the same store.
Let's go to the speed round. What is a thing you have bought that makes you happy?
A mountain cabin, which is where I am right now, actually. I do my writing in a cabin in the mountains just south. It's just beneath the North Carolina border with Georgia, called Sky Valley, Georgia. Beautiful place, still somewhat affordable here as opposed to Highland. So if I go 10 minutes up the road, it's only millionaires and billionaires. Here is a beautiful part of the world. And I get away, I write, I talk with interesting people, and it allows me a peace and quiet. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And it's the only splurge I've ever really had on myself, but I enjoy it.
Have you ever made a purchase that you regret in your adult life, and sometimes you still think about it?
I am penny wise and pound foolish to a fault. And so I'm always trying to think of the cheapest way to solve a problem. And half of the time that bites me at the rear end. So it just any time that I've tried to cheapskate my way through technology only to have to go buy the real thing, and now I'm in it for the price. So like I'll give you an example. Like as magazines and newspapers increasingly went online, I used to get the Wall Street Journal and now by the time the paper shows up in Atlanta, it's already old news. So I was like, I need the morning. Well, I need an iPad. So of course I went and got the cheapest used 6th generation ago iPad. The thing won't load. I hit a button, it spins, it stops, it crashes. So like now I'm in it for an old iPad and a new one. I should have just bought the new one. So,
what's the last thing you splurged on just for yourself, not for your family or friends?
Well, I mean, the cabin is really the only thing. I think there's kind of 3 personality types there. You got people who, and I know some of these folks, like every time they get money, like, wow, I'm so excited to spend on a car or a jet ski or whatever. And I've never been that guy. It never excited me. And then I have friends who feel like money's purpose is to grow in the background and never be touched. And I've never been that guy either. So the honest answer is like splurging on my kids is splurging on me in a way. Like when I get to take my daughter my daughter's really into basketball. Thank you, Caitlin Clark. That woman has cost me so much money. And so, I mean, just the number of basketball related paraphernalia I have bought, but like I am buying it for my kid, but honestly, like it brings me joy, like to see, let's go to the basketball camp. Let's spend the several $100s that I know not every kid's parents can do. And so it's a blessing to me to get to be there, and I'll just sit in the stands and watch her. So,
other than the lesson you shared earlier about discovering that no one should have sold you a mortgage, what is one thing about money that you wish you knew earlier in life?
It's not tied to prestige. I think that it's very easy, especially from working class backgrounds, when you aren't, like my parents had not gone to college and they went back at night school, right? Like, but they had not gone to real residential 4-year college. My grandparents had not graduated college. Like there was none of that. And so it's easy to think when you come from those backgrounds that prestige and money are all coming from the same font. And so, I know a lot of lawyers now who are $250,000 in student loan debt who aren't making a lot of money. And disproportionately, I find that those people usually came from the working class and thought, well, if I become a lawyer, I will become successful. Right. And the same thing with me. Like I became an academic. I didn't ask about the money. I just assumed these people are very prestigious. They must make good money. Fun fact, they don't. Most, especially humanities academics are pulling in all of $55,000 a year. So I wish I had known that. I don't know that it would have changed much about what I did, but it would have helped me steer myself and some friends clear of some mistakes.
What is a charitable cause that you like to support?
Beyond, your run-of-the-mill boring answers like the church. Like there's a dear friend of mine made just a mind-blowing amount of money, and of course spent most of his life. He's an incredible human being, and he spent most of his life, with people coming to him asking for charities, and he would give generously. But when he retired and sold his business and made way more money than I could even wrap my mind around, he said he wanted to turn all of his business expertise onto the charitable nonprofit, and in this case, just to be full disclosure, kind of Christian, or faith-based community. And he said, a lot of these people, they were doing great work, but they had no business sense. They didn't understand how to really raise money, how to multiply their skill set so that they were bringing. And so he founded a nonprofit called Mission Increase. And Mission Increase's basic job is not to give money away, but to teach charities and nonprofits, and by the way, faith-based or not, like how can they raise money better? How can they be better at running their business and increasing their revenue? And he spent a few $100 million setting that up, and it has made billions. They have measured it, billions of additional dollars of revenue for nonprofits, because they have learned how to operate like businesses and fundraise better. And so that's something I find supporting is it's like you're not just giving your money away, like you're multiplying that money by all the money they're going to raise.
Do you have a favorite movie or TV series that has money as a major through line?
I have little kids, so like this is probably not going to impress anyone. Like we're about to go not academic, but things like Bluey and watching Bluey and the financial lives of the girls there. Ratatouille, do you know that movie?
Of course.
Yeah, I think Ratatouille is a great movie for thinking about because I don't think about money as just like the transactional aspect of the money, but like creativity, dispersed talent, like meritocracy, human capital. Like sometimes the systems that are in place don't actually do a good job at recognizing where the real talent is. And so this idea that like, if you're really passionate about something and you get really good at it, which is, one of the takeaways I had from studying history, is like, it's the people who are passionate about something and want to be the best at it, that those are where the rewards come. And so, not to like overly theorize Ratatouille, but there's something about the way that movie ends with all the prestige, which, as an academic is kind of what we're taught to trade in. All the prestige kind of goes away because you can't have rats running a kitchen and win a Michelin star, right? So they have to shut the restaurant down. But the movie ends with like the rat has this like fabulous, wonderful restaurant that people are excited to go eat at, and it's more modest, but it's successful. And for me, it's like, pursue your passion, not foolishly, like be really good at it. And if you do that and you get better and better over time, the rewards are there. And it may not be rewards in prestige. People may not remember your name, but you will make a good living and you will have a good life. And for me, that's maybe the kind of lesson I want my kids taking away. And since I watch a lot of kids' movies.
Last thing is a penny for your thoughts. And this is just any bit of wisdom that you've picked up along the way that you want to share with people who are listening. And it doesn't have to be about money. It can be about anything.
Yeah. Wow. What a great question. Invest in relationships, because in business, relationships have outsized performance. I know all the movies about capitalism are all about corruption and evil. That's not most business. Most successful businesses are relational. It's about trust. But over and over again, one of the lessons of history for financial success is like invest in marriage, invest in family. Marriage confounds pretty much anything you can throw at it for a marker of financial success or failure. I mean, it outperforms race, it outperforms gender, it outperforms class. Like everything about marriage and it's tied to financial success is wildly powerful because, as I say this a lot, capitalism is a team sport. And so you want to play with two players. And so I just encourage everybody, like if you got a marriage, invest in that marriage, make it the best one it's going to be.
There you go. Joseph's latest book is How to Get Rich in American History, 300 Years of Financial Advice That Worked and Didn't. Check it out. As you just heard, the guy is a very good storyteller. I'm Chris Hill. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week.